Today, we're looking to create 5 cinematic lighting setups using only one light. We'll be talking about best practice, gear recommendations, use case scenarios, and a few tools that can take your videos to the next level. First up on our list, we've got our current setup. This is arguably the most common setup, which all of your favorite creators use. You may also see it being used for interviews or portraits in photography. Perfect for when you only have one light. We'll begin by setting up your primary light, which we'll call the key light. You're going to want to set it up 45 degrees left or right of our subject and above them so that it's at eye level, but it's also not an overhead setup. Now, if you feel like the shadow is too dark, then you can take something like this reflector right here, which you can place opposite of your key light to soften up those shadows. And that's it. Super easy to do, and it's perfect for when you only have one light and you're working in a tight space. Now, as we move into our top-down or overhead lighting setup, I want to take a moment to talk about the Zhiyun Molus B200 light, which is what we're using for all of our lighting setups today. Now, this isn't a sponsored video, but Zhiyun did send me the light because they believed that it would be a great addition to my toolset. Now, this light is surprisingly bright. What's great about it is that you can dial it all the way down to 1%, giving you complete control over the intensity of the light. Operating it is pretty straightforward. You hold the left button to access the menu for settings like Bluetooth, and the right button lets you switch between effects or a normal light. And if you're not using the app, which we'll talk about that later in the video, you can quickly cycle through preset values or color temperatures with simple button clicks. Although it's not an RGB light, the ability to adjust the color temperature and output is incredibly flexible. One thing that you should keep in mind though is that this light has a built-in cooling system with fans, so it stays cool even after extended use. But that means that the fans will naturally make a bit more noise when your light is at a brighter setting. I personally didn't find this to be a problem because I keep my light pretty dim. So given its intensity, I recommend using a diffuser like this lantern softbox, or even a larger softbox like our previous setup, with a grid for more directional control. With setups like this, the Zhiyun B200 light has proven to be a great addition to my toolset, and it also helps that the light is quite compact, with it being smaller than a standard size coffee pot and weighing only 3 pounds, which means I can easily take it on the go when I need to travel, especially when I have to keep my gear list light, no pun intended. And speaking of traveling, our next lighting setup is brought to you by my friend Dante, who is a travel filmmaker.
In the style of videos that I create, I'm usually only working with natural lighting, because in travel filmmaking, you don't always have the luxury of plugging the light in. Maybe you're in the mountains, maybe you're on the beach, where there's obviously no outlets. However, in some scenarios, lighting can either make or break your film. So depending on the situation you're in, you might be working with a few different light sources. When lighting up your scene, you want to take into consideration what color temperature you're using. For this lighting setup, we have a spotlight attachment on the light, and we have the color temperature set to 3900 Kelvin. However, if we were aiming to shoot a nighttime scene, you'd want to change the Kelvin to 6500. But as you can see, it still doesn't really look like moonlight, and that's where color filters come in. When we add the color filter over the light, it allows us to change the color hue rather than the color temperature, in order to give us a more realistic nighttime look. So on top of the color filters, what's really cool about the spotlight attachment is that it allows you to take your shot to the next level by being able to shape your light. So in this case, we have a window frame, which is really hard to replicate practically, and also really hard to change the position of it while you're on set. Or you could use a shape like this, which looks like we have the light set up outside of a bedroom window, shining light through the blinds. Or if you're going for a more stylistic look, there's a ton of different shapes you can use to add more emotion into your film. So as you can tell, a spotlight is a great addition to your toolkit, whether you're working with one light or multiple.
Okay, so this next setup is a bit different because we're actually trying to change the color hue of our light. Now, this would be super easy to do if we had an RGB light, but in our case, we're working with a cob light and it doesn't have that ability. So what do? Well, a simple solution would be to get color gels for your light. I got these from Amazon for about $30 and they work amazing. You can see that I'm currently using them on the Zhiyun light, shining onto the background, and it's spilling a little bit on the shadow side of my face. Changing the color of your light can be a great way to add a stylistic flair to your shots, and different colors can evoke different emotions. For instance, red can be anger, passion, and rage, but it could also mean love, power, and excitement. On the other hand, yellow can help portray deceit and illness, but it can also be wisdom, knowledge, and hope. And another popular color is blue, which can be used to portray depression and isolation, but also peace and tranquility. So if you only have one light, then you can still achieve great stylistic looks. But if you have more than one light, then you can create some color contrast and separation like I'm doing here with this key light. Alright, so I have one more setup with only one light, but if you're finding value in this video, go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button. I truly appreciate it. So for our fifth and final setup, we're gonna jump into the ZY Vega app, which not only allows you to control the color temperature and the output, but in the case that you have more than one light source and they happen to be different color temperatures, the ZY Vega app actually allows you to match those seamlessly. All you need to do is make sure that you're paired up with your light, and on the bottom left of your screen, you'll see the CCT pair icon. This will allow you to turn on the camera in your phone, and if you point your phone's camera to any light source, then the app will be able to read the color temperature of it. So in this case, we have different practicals going on here on screen. If I take my phone and I point it at the light source to my left, then you'll be able to see that I'm able to match the color temperature of this practical. Now, if I point it towards the blinds, then I'll be able to match the color temperature of the light coming through the blinds. So this can be really useful when you have more than one light in your set, because the reality is that you won't always have the same light brand. And again, when you're working with practicals or light sources such as daylight, the last thing you want to run into is an issue where you have mixed lighting and color grading becomes 10 times harder. You can find all links to the gear I talked about in this video in the description. And if you want to take your filmmaking to the next level, lighting is only one piece to the puzzle. You'll also want to learn how to color grade. So here's a video about color grading in DaVinci Resolve that I think you may find valuable. Peace.